Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of 3 Minute Game Pass. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you whether this Game Pass game is worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Shadow Warrior 2. The sequel to the reboot of the classic build engine 90s shooter is here. Hooray! So, Shadow Warrior 2 is an Xbox and PC cross-release. It doesn't have any cross-platform features, no chivos, nothing like that. It does have FPS boost, but only for Series X. Every other system is locked to 30 FPS. And overall, the game is about 8 hours long. So what the heck is Shadow Warrior 2? Well, I can tell you, it isn't a boomer shooter made on the build engine. This is more of an FPS game that feels like a mix between Diablo and Doom Eternal. The game is structured around missions and side missions where you accomplish a certain task by murdering enemies with first-person shooting and melee and picking up a ton of loot. The game has a heavy emphasis on movement, providing you with an infinite dash, a bunch of magical abilities that you can use, as well as some melee special abilities that can be upgraded over the course of the game. Loot is used to augment your weapons. Each weapon has 3 sockets that you can equip loot to. This includes doing things like adding elemental effects, increasing fire rate, increasing damage, stuff like that. You can also equip 3 to your armor in 3 separate slots, including a co-op boost, because you can't play this game 4-player co-op, as well as some general upgrades to your character. You lastly can gain karma by killing enemies, which is basically XP, which will let you level up ability cards, some of which you start with and some of which you acquire on the way that also affect your character. So it's a looter shooter with strong mobility and mission-based structure. So what do I like about this game? The combat is exhilarating, fast, and furious. It is very good. It definitely feels in the vein of Doom Eternal, where you are given a ton of options to dash and move around quickly, and a boatload of weapons to play with a bunch of different elemental types. Speaking of elemental types, elite enemies throughout the game have different elemental strengths and weaknesses, meaning you are going to need a large variety of weapons in order to exploit these weaknesses, which is a pretty cool idea. This includes a lot of different environments to fight these enemies in, which is also really exhilarating. And lastly, the cycle is very addicting. It grabs you with its generic shooting and looting systems, but hey, that stuff's proven to be get its hooks in people, and so here we are. In terms of the bad, my biggest gripe is the story is bland, and I hate the characters. They are meant to be kind of silly and jokey, but they're just mean-spirited and not funny at all. Early in the game, Wang gets a female character stuck in his head, so they banter back and forth, and it's cringy and mean and lame. I did not find it funny whatsoever. The second thing that's frustrating is managing all the loot you get with your weapons is cumbersome and frustrating. It's very hard to swap gear in and out easily and to know what gear is better than other gear. There's just too much loot to handle. And lastly, mission difficulty is just all over the place. Maps vary in quality, and with scaling, the game either gets too easy or too hard until you hit some insanely hard boss and get stuck. And lastly, the game is locked to 30 FPS on every console but the Series X, which really hurts this game, so if you have a Series X, preference that. As you know, I rate games on a 3-point scale. Must play, maybe consider, don't bother. This game is definitely a maybe consider, but I do feel like it's a bit of a hidden gem. This is a great AA release. It doesn't run perfectly, the 30 FPS really hurts it, but the overall loop is really fun, and the high mobility and amount of customization you can do with your gear is great. Strong melee combat mixed with the shooting is very fun, despite the game's slow start. So if you're itching for a game that feels a bit like Doom Eternal, but with loot from Borderlands, you should check this game out. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and go out there and enjoy Shadow Warrior 2.